We're here this evening at Moody Jones Gallery for the Artist Talk, the first of two Artist Talk for Phenomenal Women, per Abstraction. I have two phenomenal women artists here with me this evening, and I want to share with you a little bit about each of them. I have Yolanda Ward, and for Yolanda, I have to say near and dear to us, she was a part of our very first Phenomenal Women's show, and has been with us since the gallery opened. So it's always exciting to welcome her back and to see what she's doing. And I have to say that I met Yolanda through, a colleague, friend that we had known mutually. And at the time, she was just leaving corporate America, where she had been a creative director and was exploring what she could do with her own art. As she likes to share, she's always been into paper. She was collecting it, didn't know what to do with it, and then out of that paper came her work as a collagist. The work that I initially saw of Yolanda's was figurative, with landscapes, and now she's ventured into abstract art. And so she's going to speak a little bit to that. She is basically self-taught, but has done some studying at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, at the Philadelphia Printing School, as well as attended a lot of workshops in the Philadelphia area. I think the real skill that she's learned is making her own paper, which is, when you think about it, paper does come from wood. It is a natural source. It is made. It's not a synthetic craft. It really is made from pulp, the pulp of wood. And she'll talk a little bit more about that and how she got into what she's doing. And the other artist that's with me is new to Moody Jones Gallery, and certainly new to Phenomenal Women, and I welcome her as an abstract artist. And her name is Jess the Artist, given name Jessica Jackson. I love her story. She is self-taught, and her work as an artist came out of I'd say a mood disorder. She was depressed, not knowing what to do, was an Army veteran, 2 children, and deciding, okay, I'm not sure what I want to do. School, college isn't right for me. But as part of that education process, she got involved with art therapy. And out of the art therapy came her own identification of what her creative talent was. And I'm going to close there and let her share whatever else about herself that she'd like to as we move along in the interview. But I want to open in giving each of the artists a chance to speak to. As you know, the name of the show is Phenomenal Women, which comes from Maya Angelou, Phenomenal Woman. So I just want each of them to speak to how Maya may have influenced them, or how they see themselves as a phenomenal woman. And I'll start with Yolanda.
Well, Maya Angelou for me is everything. And we spoke about her once before. She's always been in my life. Whenever I was in some kind of trouble, one of her books would come out and it would save me. It would just take me right out of that place and push me on my way. Everything she's written, who she is, how she walked in the world, I just am in awe of her. I even wrote her once and she wrote me back. And
I'm jealous.
She's just everything. And I'm in another show in September, and I have to do some pieces about famous African American writers. So, first on my list is Maya Angelou. So I know, Robin, you're going to be in line.
I am.
Because I'm hoping to do it justice. But I love her. I love everything about her.
Well, thank you for sharing. Jess?
For me, it's her story. So you have someone who has like this mysterious background, this not so famous background, and had she left our earth many years before, we would never know what she would have become. And for me, that's powerful. So as far as the poem Phenomenal Woman, I grew up not having a lot of confidence. So when I read that poem, you know, she talks about how she's, you know, walking into rooms, how she's appreciating her body, and, you know, how she's just at all with herself. And for me, that's what resonates. So.
Wow, and I have to say, I feel what both of you are saying. You know, once upon a time, an opportunity to meet Maya Angelou was on my bucket list. So to receive a letter or something that she wrote to you is the next best thing. So as you heard me mumbling in the background, I'm jealous. She is such an inspiration. Her life, her lifestyle, her God-given gifts, her political activism, just her entirety as a being is inspiring to each of us, and especially being Black women. It's truly an inspiration. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity just to speak about your work. I'm going to start with Jess.
So my work has taken many forms. So I've been painting seriously for a year and a half. Maybe professionally, I'd say about 8 months or so. And what happens is I get these concepts and these colors and these dreams, and I go one way, and then I'm like, squirrel, and then I go another way. I'm constantly testing different methods, different mediums. I've worked with acrylics. I just got into spray paint. I'm learning watercolor. So I'm just constantly, I'm still learning, still kind of perfecting, but I'm just constantly moving through the art realm, so to speak.
Have you ever dabbled in doing imagery, or would you say that most of your work is not direct portraits or images and is more a hint of imagery, but more an expansion of what the image could be?
I'd say more of an expansion because, so I'm self-taught, so I feel like when I first began, I wanted, like say for instance a portrait, I wanted to get the details, like the hair, the skin, the nose, the shape of the nose. And as I started moving more through my artistry, I realized that none of that mattered. The expression mattered, what you felt when you saw it. Can you feel the emotions that I'm trying to portray? So that's what kind of brings you into abstract. It's not the picture, but it's the picture. You know what I mean? So you wanted to say more than it actually says. In doing that, you have to take away some of those characteristics that you would see in a like the hair doesn't matter, the skin doesn't matter, but the emotions matter and the story of the picture matters. And that's what I try to focus on more now.
Yolanda?
Well, you know, I'm a paper nut lady, and I have paper everywhere, as everybody knows. And I also, because I make the paper, but it's about the process. So every part of the stage of my artistry is about process, and from making the paper to the research I do, to trying to figure out how I want to feel, and how I want the work to feel, and you know, meditating so that I can release that, because as Jess was saying, it's about how it feels, but you have to release that into the art. Like you have to let go, and that journey is getting bigger, which is my art getting more abstract. At the same time, I even did a workshop I was in about the abstraction and what does it mean and how do you determine where you are, and that's what it's such a wide scope, it's such a wide range, and I just was trying to figure out where I fit in it so that I can continue. So I'm really excited about it, but I'll always be based in paper, whether it's an abstract cityscape, whether it's waterscape, whether it's portraiture. I'll always be based in paper in some way. And I'm so excited because I have a new piece of paper. And I can't wait to see what it's going to do. I mean, I've never seen it before. Somebody told me about it. I got some. It was very expensive, but it floats through the air. But it's that light, so that the marking that's on the paper, it will be the only thing that shows on the piece when I lay it down. Because the piece that's the paper, it will disappear.
Wow. So it's almost as if it melts.
It will not, because if you feel this, like it's so thin. I mean, I made this piece, but it's so thin that it almost will disintegrate if I hold my brush and the medium on it too long.
Okay.
You know, so it's just like painting, but it's with paper.
With paper. And so both of you work in very different mediums.
Yes.
And you know, Jess, you're really a brand new artist. You
Yes.
said a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And Yolanda is new as, you know, she hasn't been an artist her entire life,
Right.
but certainly more than a year and a half.
Since 2009, since my layoff from corporate America, and I had to pivot. So from 2009 was when I went into the studio, and I just have been in there ever since. Yeah, and just be true, because it's your path, and it will work out. It is scary. Very scary. But it will work out. It will work out.
And something that you said, Jess, and then you spoke to also, Yolanda, is the feeling. One of the things we found as, you know, as an art gallery, curators, dealers of art, is that sometimes, you know, one of the comments that we hear is, why don't you have pieces that are happy? You know, why would you have something with someone crying, you know? And that, those are all feelings. I just want each of you to speak a little bit about, you know, the emotion about a piece of art, you know, when you're painting it, when you're, you know, doing the paperwork with it, and what you, if you have an anticipation of what the client might feel as they're seeing your piece, or as I like to say, being fed by your by your piece. Either of you can start us.
You know, I get a lot of questions. So, okay, one, it's kind of hard to paint something sad when you're working in something that makes you so happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I'm sad, I paint and it makes me happy. And that's what you're primarily gonna get. Now, there are moments where, because for me, I started as art therapy, so I have to kind of tell myself, go back to the therapy sometimes. But when I do create those highly I won't say sad, because it's not just sad, it's sadness, it's regret, it's worry, it's many things. And it takes, you have to be really, really vulnerable. This piece up here, it hurts to even look at it on a wall, because it's like the ultimate vulnerable. And sometimes people do need to see that because they can relate to it. But it is hard putting that much of yourself on a canvas.
So there's a vulnerability,
It's a vulnerability.
you know, emoting
Yes, it's
onto the
It's
canvas.
like standing on a stage naked and crying in front of a huge crowd. And it's like, at the end of, you know, as an artist, do you want to put yourself out there or do you not? And people won't relate if you don't put that out there too, because everybody has good emotions and bad emotions, and ultimately they'll be able to relate to both. But it depends on what you're feeling at the moment.
I agree. I try to leave myself because I want the work to speak for me. Like, I don't want to get in the way of it. So there's an energy that exudes, like when you disappear and you're in there. Because for me, in my process, I usually work in a little bit of a series. So I already had an idea, I had thought it out from my corporate world, where the plan, even though I'm trying to let it go, but that part of it, like what am I working on, it's already set in my mind. So, but what they actually look like, the paper needs to tell me. Like, it tells me where to put each piece, and I have to be listening. You know, but I have to allow myself to be listening and not be like, let me just put it here. No. You have to, okay, no, I think, okay, here you go, you know. So you have to find it because it starts to build on itself. So for me, whether, like I said, portraiture, I think the emotion, like, because you can escape into a seascape. You can imagine yourself on that beach, under that umbrella. You know, the cities, you can let your mind be free about, you know, that view, because that's one of the reasons why just in this series, this Cityscape series, it was the reflection of what I thought you would see, because I grew up in the inner city. So there was no view. It was the other row houses across the street from you. So me and my first boyfriend, I would sneak out when he would be babysitting for the sister next door, and we would sit on the step and we would imagine, what would that look like if that wasn't there? What would you see? He'd say, what he'd see, I say, but I see it. So when I'm ever doing any kind of cityscape, that memory comes back, and I just try to let it do its thing. And because when you feel it, because it's a real emotion.
I know both of you are from the Philadelphia area.
Yes.
And left, come back, and here settled for the time being. Anyway. And I know that, as you mentioned, sitting on the step or the stoop.
Yeah.
Here in Philadelphia, and just dreaming about what the potential is if this wasn't my block,
Right.
and what that would look like. Just thinking about that, and the whole world of abstraction, abstract art. Can each of you just speak to who or what artists may have inspired you, or that that you can visualize their work and it emotes something in you, just something you can speak to? And I know we had kind of had a prelude about potentially being Black woman abstract artists. There aren't a lot of them. There are a few, and I can speak more to that as we wind up our talk. But right now, I just want to know, whom, if any, abstract artist was inspiring to you.
Well, we talked about Faith Ringgold, and I'm speaking to her particularly because she pieces things together too, and that's how I view my paper, piecing the pieces together. There's also Thelma Thomas. I looked up, and she's just like mind-blowing, every little patch of paint. But I really enjoy her because, her artwork came in her second half, like me.
Yes.
So we already had a life of career and work and all of that, and to begin again at this phase. So I just like, okay, look at her.
And it's interesting what you say about Alma Thomas, because her earlier work was all in figurative work, and it wasn't until she, in her later years, when she really got into abstraction, and that's when she became known. Really, in the sunset of her life is when her artwork became known, and she exhibited at some of the major museums in New York, known for showing a lot of abstract art and art outside the traditional of what we think of figurative work and landscape, and pioneer. Jess?
So for me, I will say that I would have to go back and research a lot of these. Now, I have heard of a lot of amazing, phenomenal abstract female artists, but for me, it's Basquiat. And as a female, for a female artist, it's always been Frida for me, even though she's not abstract. I guess you wouldn't refer to her as abstract, but for me, I really liked how, if you've ever really researched her story and got to know her life, she painted through a lot of pain. And she painted through a lot of pain, and that's what even led me to want to get into art therapy, because art has never resonated with me unless it was a Frida piece, for some reason. And so when I started painting for art therapy, I referred to a lot of Frida, but when you get further in your artistic journey and you stop paying attention to all of those wrong details and you start paying attention to the right details, because there's the heart and the mind when you work on So your mind wants to tell you to put a color somewhere, but your heart is saying that's not where that color should go.
Same thing with the paper, I guess.
It's not where it should go. And you want it to go there, but that's not where it should go.
Exactly.
And when you look at Basquiat, it's like you can tell Basquiat knew which details to focus on and which to not focus on. And his abstract work was literally, for me, it looks like a mind dump, so to speak. Like, this is what was on my mind, and I'm putting it on the canvas, but I don't care about the nose, I don't care, because he just gives you like these figures and this graffiti and all this other background noise, and it makes so much sense.
It does.
So for me, when I started painting professionally, I would like to be the female Black Basquiat.
All right now.
Okay.
All right now.
Yeah.
And that's quite an aspiration, I mean, I have to say. So I will say this is the first time also that we've had an all abstract show, male or female. And so it's new for us too, and it's been really energizing to see what abstract means to each artist. We have 4 women artists represented during this show. And it's everyone's interpretation is so different. I mean, it's just phenomenal to see the differences and to see how each of you were inspired in your own way and shared yourselves on the canvas.
Yeah, I just think that's really what art is each artist being able to tap into themselves and put it out there. And that's a big journey, because like Jess was saying, you got your mind telling you something, you got your heart telling you something, then the world is telling you something too. They're like, oh, well, we want you to keep doing this or that, and you're trying to expand, so it's a lot of chatter. But that's where the whole, being able to meditate, quiet yourself, being able to go into the space that you can create in, and then it just flows. But you'll hear it, it'll be talking to you, and if it talks to you, then it'll talk to them. That's the kid. You want them to talk to the people. You want them to walk out and be stopped. Like, okay, wait, what's happening here? What is, and start that dialogue. So, art is just about expression. Happy, sad, beachscape, landscape,
Absolutely.
thought process.
And every artist has something to say. I tell people all the time, you have like some artists that say, okay, well, I don't want to do cityscapes because there's people who do cityscapes, but you can do a cityscape and someone else can do a cityscape of the same cityscape, and it's not going to be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like every artist has an inner voice and an outer voice, and that outer voice is what's going to be on the canvas. So that's what creates. So everybody has a lane in that, especially in abstract art. There's a lane for everybody.
And it continues to evolve too. I mean, because people have there's so many different things, mixing things together because now people are doing, and even me, I'm going to start incorporating some of the block print, and that's hand carved. I already got the handmade paper, but then I'm going to carve some, and use those marks on the paper. And so it keeps getting bigger and bigger if you let it, but you have to know, this is you,
So you're continuing to let it evolve.
You have to.
Is what I'm hearing.
And you have to continue to listen to your inner voice because that inner voice evolves constantly, and it'll tell you if you listen hard. I like that you meditate. I meditate.
Yeah,
I meditate before I paint, and sometimes I have no clue what I'm going to paint, and I just let it go to the point where I have no plans for where my brush is going or the colors that I'm going to use, and just let it go. And then at the end, I'm like, oh, that's what you were trying to tell me.
And really, the meditation is for life, because it sets your moment, sets your day. So before I move into my day, I go there so that I know what I'm stepping into. So it's not just the art, it's how you walk through the world, how you think, how you greet people, how you welcome them, your energy. It's a full circle thing. It's not just that. And that is what I think you feel, because I really want people to feel my work.
about meditation, sometimes another term that's used is mindfulness. And it totally makes sense that you would do that before you know, start working on your craft, because the whole idea of mindfulness and meditation is to put you in the moment, right here and now.
That's right.
Without distractions of where you were or where you could be, but what's happening in this very space, in this very moment. And I agree, it's a perfect way to start the day. It's also a way to manage life. It does impact how you treat other people and how you let other people treat you. It does impact your ability to respond to situations and not just react to a situation. And you can do it almost all the time, anytime, step back anywhere, just be right now in this moment.
I was watching this random video on meditation, and it had like the best advice. So basically, when you meditate, the whole point, people think when you meditate, you have to be focused. The whole point of meditation is to unfocus so you can refocus. And when you unfocus, it's because you're distracted by a thought or a feeling. And the video taught when that happens, you tell yourself it's just a thought. It's just a thought, and refocus. And that throughout the day, you can meditate anywhere. So when someone else has a bad vibe, or even if you have you might get uncomfortable, it's just a thought, and you move past it. And yeah, you have to start your day like that, because you never know. Every day is full of different things. You know, you can't predict your day. So
Before I started meditating, I did a ceramics class, and it was on the wheel. And the first thing you have to do with it is find the center with the clay. So if you don't center a block of clay on the wheel, you'll be going like this, and it will be moving you. But once you find center, then you can bring it up, you can take it back down. It's all in control. But that centering in that moment, it wasn't just about the clay. And I was like, this is a life thing. If I could just center myself, I started applying that, and then that's when I found out about meditation. Like, okay, here you go. It's getting bigger.
I want to just change tracks a little. I know that both of you are mothers. And just to talk a little bit about that and how mothering, how even your children may have influenced the work that you do or where you are now.
Well, my kids are actually right over there. And they do way more for me than I could ever do for them. They probably have no clue what I'm talking about now in their young little lives, but yeah, mothering, it's amazing. It forces you to really get to know yourself. And I spent a lot, my children are 7 and 11, and I spent a large portion of their lives thus far finding who I am. And now I'm more so in the phase where I'm perfecting who I am. And I've made it a mission to live out my dreams so that they can live out their dreams. So yeah, mothering is at the root of everything I do. It's just, please, I can go on and on. I'm not even gonna start crying.
I hear you. Well, I have one daughter, and she'll be 33 this year. So, she's grown. And, listening to her now, especially from what you just said, they will remember, because now she talks to me about when she was little and what I did and what I said, and how, because she's like a little mini me now. Like she's a hustler, like she's always working. She's got everything going on. And I keep trying to tell her, damn, you don't have to do all that. I'm trying to show her. She has a podcast, so she did a interview with me for Mother's Day. And she brought me full circle. Like, people were like, your daughter did a good job at that, because she had you talking about this and that, and she wants you right on back, because I can
Right.
drift away.
But she brought you back in.
She knew how, so I guess so she's a real good podcaster. But you know, I surrounded her around the best that I could be. You know, because I just wanted to do a good job. So she had my undivided attention. I drove her crazy making things because every holiday we did not buy gifts. We made gifts.
Okay.
And she hung in there with me, but that was not her favorite thing. But she's a creative person too, just from being in that and around that. So just sitting in this space, because in the house we always had art on the wall, some kind of imagery on the wall. And it wasn't until she was in high school, she was in a class, and her instructor started talking about these people, these artists and musicians, and she was like, "Mom, I couldn't figure out why I knew them." And then she said, and then she's been living with them all her life because they've been surrounded. So every little thing in the best energy, and giving the best of yourself into the world and to the kids and to everybody, is one of the mantras.
And it sounds like just from what you said that you're a collector also. Not only are you an artist.
Listen, that one right there is mine.
She's just pointing to one of Jess's pieces that she is going to own. And Jess, what about you in art? Have you been collecting? Or
Oh my God, yeah, I'm definitely a collector. I actually own a piece from one of the other artists in this exhibit, and I own several pieces from the artists in other exhibits. So usually, what I try to do is, because art is energy, and whenever I'm in an exhibit, I try to get at least one of the other artists that's in the exhibit, because it's like, wow, I share the same energy with this. And every time I'm in an exhibit with someone, and I really, like, I stand Yolanda. So the fact that she's, you know, getting one of my pieces, I'm like, oh, so I just like to share the energy. So yes, I'm a collector as well. I like to have all the energies in my life. Yeah.
It's a good energy.
Yeah, and I have to share, it gives me an opportunity to share that, you know, my husband and I, he's the Moody, I'm the Jones. Neither of us are artists, you know, or that's not we don't have that creative ability, but we've been collecting probably before we knew each other and for as long as we've known each other, which is now over 40 years. I mean, we had art and no furniture. Okay. And so, when you said that about your daughter, I mean, our kids are around that same age. You know, you never know what it is they're collecting and keeping inside, and that's the beauty. You'll see that as your children get older. And it's true. It was, I guess, high school and definitely college, and after they had graduated, that then they started identifying pieces in our home that they wanted. Pieces, you know, that I'm like, yeah, claim it now. You can get it now. Point it out. Let us know, you know, that you're interested in this, that you want this. I mean, both of them have furnished, you know, where they live with artwork, you know, from our collection, are starting to buy their own artwork, and it's funny because we never, and I'm sure with both of you, you don't talk about collecting, and you don't talk about, you know, how you feel about art and liking it.
Oh, I definitely do.
You do? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Share.
Oh, I absolutely do. I go on these morning rants, and I'm pretty sure that I do it so much now that when I'm done talking, if I pause long enough, my son's like, and that's the rant for the day. And I'm like, no, you need to know.
He's shaking his head yes.
I was like, no, you need to know who Marvin Gaye was. You need to know who Nina Simone is. You need to know this. You need to know this. And I'm so deep with it that even every time we move, so I can totally relate to that, the first box I unpack is the artwork. I don't unpack my clothes. I don't unpack my person. I cannot be in a new house if the walls are empty and the bookshelves are empty. I can't do it. I can't do it. So I have to put up the art, I gotta put up the books, then everything else. And while I'm doing that, I'm getting
So that's absolutely awesome that you're speaking about it. I have to say, I don't think that I spoke about it. I don't think that my husband did either, but they got it. You know, they get it. Even the things, the little things you don't tell them, because it was later on in life, they said, well, of course we know about art. Of course we like art. We were surrounded by it all of our lives, you know, and we took them, you know, we were going to the museum, we had a backpack and a front pack, and they were with us at the museum and constantly being exposed.
Yes, right. And I tell them about the artists I come across, even in these exhibits. So I'm like, there are no name people that are just simply phenomenal. So aside from the people that everyone knows, I'm like, oh, I was in this exhibit, and there's this girl who paints with her eyes closed. I was in an exhibit, and there's this girl who massages paint onto. I was in this exhibit, and this lady makes art out of paper that she makes. And they're like, that's nice.
Right. But they, you know, they have it. It's being internalized. It's being internalized.
You know, I was really surprised at the opening, because my daughter came to the opening, and she bought one of Queen's pieces.
Yes.
Her first piece of art
That she's ever bought. Oh my goodness.
She was like, I gotta have it.
I feel important to be part of
Yes.
that.
Right? Yes. And I was like, well, you just gotta get it then.
Yes.
Because you know, she understands about it moving.
Yeah.
Something moves you. That doesn't happen all the time.
No,
You gotta
it's-
grab it.
And it's hard to, although I haven't given up, to just kind of, I'm always sharing it, but kind of teaching it, you know, that you should feel something when you look at a piece.
If you love it, you gotta get it.
You have to
Even
get
if you
it.
hate it, you might hate
That's
it
the
for
other
a
thing.
specific reason.
And you may love the fact that you hate it.
But you felt
But
something.
you felt it. Yes,
Something.
you felt something from the piece. It
Yeah.
moved you in some way, and I think that's important. And yeah, there's going to be things you don't like and styles you don't like, and you're going to identify, you know, what you feel makes you feel the best. But you're also going to see things that make you angry, and that's an emotion that, you know, you can dwell in for a moment too, and you can decide whether that's something you want hanging in your home or not. But at least, it evokes some kind of emotion.
It
from
does, and for me, even with if it's because it speaks to you, whether it's something that's scary, something that's hard, something that makes you happy, it's that it spoke to you. Like this is a piece of art that it stopped you, you heard, you felt something, and that, you know, because when you get it home, you will then just contemplate about it. You'll sit, you'll watch it, you'll see something else. And all of that is a journey in itself. That I remember when I unpacked, when I moved, because my stuff was in storage for a long time, and when they finished the house, and my stuff got moved back into the house, and I remember opening up the art, and I was like, my friends are back. And then I said to myself, I was like, did I say that? So, you know, because they speak to you, you know.
And what is this thing, you know, we gotta get out of this bubble where life is supposed to be all good. Life is not supposed to be all good, and it's not supposed to be all bad, and there's not all positive, and there's not all negative, and you have to understand that there's light and dark simultaneously.
Yes.
Life is about
Yes.
balance. So I hear a lot of people say like, oh, I buy a piece when I really, really love it. But love is not the only emotion. And sometimes it's not that you have to keep it with you, but we need to be able to recognize all emotions. And sometimes a lot of people, when they look at art, they just think, oh, I either love it or I hate it. But that indifferent feeling, that means something too.
Yes, it does. It does.
Because it's a story. I
It's
mean,
a
it's a story. And it's just like books, because I'm a book collector. I got books everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the story.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, it's like the art in the books. How can you not have
How
art
can
in
you not have
books?
art in books,
What's
right?
wrong with you?
I have to say, I miss having albums.
I still have my album. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
That's right.
Okay, it's a sisterhood. It's a sisterhood. Yes.
I wish they still had CDs. Like
I know.
I have a few like old like Mariah Carey
I have CDs, yes, and now they even took that slot off the computers, so you can't
CDs. And
I just want to touch on something else that's, particularly for our audience. Art is to be included when you're making your house a home. And so it is a part of your landscape inside your home.
Yes.
And I'm really hesitating on how to phrase this and frame it. But I know that, people do decorate and then have the art as the finishing piece to match the decoration. And I have mixed feelings about that. And I'll let you speak to that. And then keep that in mind. And the other thing I'd like you to speak to, which I'll also talk about some more, is the importance of supporting our artists. We are the ones, and when I say we, I mean Black people, we are the ones most likely to buy the art of artists from the African diaspora. And the diaspora is huge. I mean, it's when you think about all the potential places we can be from. And so, a way to start is by supporting emerging artists and then going up the ladder. I mean, there's the big time collectors now like Jay-Z and Beyonce and Swiss Beats.
Right.
And their collections are quite impressive.
Yeah.
But that's not what the everyday person is going to be collecting, but you can still be involved. So I'll open it up now to both of you, first about the decorating and, and the importance, and then supporting our own artists.
Well, the decorating. I'm tossed about it. I think that's nice. Number one, that they brought a piece of art. So I'm just happy that happened. And I just want whatever they purchased to do more than decorate their finishing touch. That the piece should, again, tell a story. It should affect them. I don't know how people live in a place and there's nothing on the walls. I'm always looking, especially on, like you see a commercial or TV or you're watching a show, and there is nothing on the wall. I'm like, okay, what are they doing? Especially when we have the Zoom thing.
Right, and you can see what
You
people
can see people, it's like, okay, it's like, how do you live in that space? It's, it's nothing going on. So,
it's sterile.
it's very sterile. So, I'm appreciative that they buy the art because this is not only just my passion, this is my business. Like, this is my second half of my life. And so you have to make money. But that's not my first priority, but it is right up there. So, I go half and half about I need a piece. Now, you can commission a piece for your finishing touches from an artist that you love, but it has to be the artist giving you that piece, like from her, not from my pillow color. Yes. Or whatever those
commission. Yes, yes.
So that's a way that you can, decorate your house from a live living artist. The second part was about
Just about supporting, Black
that
artists,
is a must.
men, women, supporting.
Supporting, yeah, because this is how a lot of artists make their living, and support themselves and their families. And I don't know what was going on this year in the support end of the African American artists, but there was a lot of buzz. Like there seemed to be more talk, a lot more action, a lot more movement than I've seen, since I started. Not that wrong, but I was like, and I'm talking about not only high end, Beyonce's and all.
The other people
that could spend
thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's not on my vision board.
Right.
I have Beyonce and Jay-Z right up there. Okay, purchase Center, Yolanda award. But but that's like supporting each other. Small businesses, art, everything, music. We just have to learn to do that. But I'm definitely thinking we need to push forward. But I don't know what the hold up is. Like, is there a block about understanding about the art? Is that not a priority in their day or their life?
I think we're making inroads.
I think so
say
too.
that, I
I
mean,
think
as
so.
you mentioned, and there's a good reason why things have been happening and moving in the last year.
Okay.
And I'll speak to that in a moment, but I'll give Jess a chance to respond to, how people and why people purchase art, and then supporting Black artists.
Well, okay, so I'll just say I have this. So I'll discuss the piece from the female, one of the other female artists in this exhibit. Her name is Melanie, and I bought a piece from her. It's called "Feed Your Fire." Now, this piece was in an exhibit we were in together a few weeks back, and I saw it and I fell in love with it. And she told me the story, and the piece is it's black and green. It's abstract, and then there's this slight hint of it. Kind of looks as if orange is rushing through the color.
Wow.
And basically her story is that you have to feed your fire, feed your passion, feed what makes you you. So where did I hang the piece? I hung the piece in my walk-in closet because for me,
Wow, okay.
when I get
That's
dressed,
personal, very.
very personal. So to take it back to Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman, when I read that poem, I feel confident like she did. I feel like, and I'm my best self when I'm confident. So I put the feed my fire in my walk-in closet. So as I'm picking out my clothes, I am reminding myself to constantly feed my fire.
Nice.
You know, express
Yes.
my inner
Yes.
outward. Now, as far as the Black support of the artist, one of my favorite quotes is by one of my favorite musical artists, Venus Simone. Again, at the last exhibit I did, I went through it, and it wasn't an all-Black exhibit, but I went and I purchased a piece from every Black artist in the exhibit that night because it was all reflective of the times. And you'll notice a lot of Black art is reflective of the time. You know, you speak about your childhood living in it. So these cityscapes, that's your perspective of your Black upbringing. And so it doesn't get any better than that. Now, why other people don't do it? Maybe it's just ignorance. You know, maybe they go more so towards the bingo. There's not a lot of people who even know who Basquiat is, and that's sad in itself. I'm like, do you not know? who
I know,
Basquiat
he's
is?
just getting the attention that he is well deserved.
Right, exactly.
And so we'll say that again, Basquiat. You'll hear the man's name.
You'll hear many, many, many.
Name, and you can Google him,
Yes.
look up his work. He was a phenomenal artist who was in the medium, or not the medium, but really worked in abstraction.
Yes.
And he was young.
He was
He
really young.
perished far too young.
There you go.
And his work is now, he is probably the Black artist who gets the most money for his work currently. He's been in some pretty big auctions.
Yeah, it was
Where-
one last year.
Right, it was almost $2 million was paid for one piece,
So
so.
200.
200 million, excuse me.
Yeah, it was.
200
Yeah.
million.
Wait, this is
200,
zeros.
some zeros of 200 million that was paid for his work. That gives you an idea. But I have to say, the closest I have to a Basquiat, I have some of his books on him. And last year, Mattel came out with a Basquiat, like Barbie, like doll. So I have a Basquiat Mattel, 12-inch doll that, it's supposed to be a kind of a likeness of him, and certainly a likeness of his artwork based on his attire that the doll has on. That's probably the closest I'll ever get to owning a Basquiat, but that's just the name I'm putting out there so you can familiarize yourself with an abstract artist, although no longer producing because he has passed on. His work is renowned.
It is now.
She is a renowned Black woman abstract artist whose work is in museums and some pretty impressive collections. And just to follow up on the comments about decorating with art, it is important to have something on your wall. And I think art has become more affordable. And I also think that some places that you wouldn't necessarily think of buying art, such as some of the stores where you can get discount clothing and discount furniture. They now have they have art sections as well, and that's a start, but it shouldn't be your end. Your goal should really be to own original pieces of art. And you don't have to spend a fortune to start a collection, and you should buy things that you like. And sometimes the things that you like may not match exactly. But you know, but they inspire something in you, they make you feel a certain way, and I appreciate that reproductions hopefully are also giving artists money from reproductions that they've created, but it's important to really learn to appreciate original artwork. Take some of that home, and I think the beauty of that, you know, especially for galleries, is that there's an opportunity to meet the artists.
Yes.
Yeah, we always have an opening reception here at Moody Jones Gallery, and within the last year we've started the artist talks, and the last time we spoke with Yolanda was in the heart of COVID. So we actually interviewed her in her studio.
So they got a chance to see all.
So they got to see inside her studio at that time. But just saying that to say, you know, sometimes you may not be sure about a piece and whether you like it, and then when you speak to the artist and hear the story behind it, and what she or he was feeling when they painted, and even how they feel about it now, which may be very different than when they were creating the piece, may also, you know, entice you to buy something. And it also is part of your art education.
Yeah.
Speaking to artists, know what inspires them, the media that they work in, what did they always do this, what did they do before, and in terms of their craft, were they always working in this medium, did they transition from something else, were they self-taught, did they have a formal art education, all of that is a way to educate, and there's so many books available now to educate yourself. I have it's not a brand new book, but it's a brand new book that I discovered on African American artists that is just on women.
Wow. Where is
Can you, Nicole, can you grab that book right there? Yes, thank you. And so I was just Googling and looking for African American women artists. Yes. And I found this book, and actually it was out of print, and this copy is from a library that was selling it, that had taken it out of circulation, and the author is Lisa Farrington, and it's Creating Their Own Image, the History of African American Women Artists.
Nice.
And there's an entire chapter here on the abstractions. So it's, you know, we're going to have it here at the gallery for you to look at. You can't have it. You certainly can look at it. And we had it in our, not this current newsletter, but the newsletter that came out prior to this one. I think it was newsletter number 4. We talked about the book and had it in there as well. So it is possible to order it from a second-hand dealer. It was very reasonably priced. We're going to wind up, you know, our talk tonight. I just wanted to see if, you know, what closing remarks either of you have. And we're going to close out in June is Black Music Month. And I'll share that we have a young man with us who I've known since before he was born. Literally, I have. And he's phenomenal to see him have grown. He's a prodigy. Started playing at 12 years old. You know, has a bachelor's in his craft, and because his grandfather played the sax too.
Nice.
And his name is Nabil McKeet, and we'll close out with him. You know, after each of them after both Yolanda and Jess give their closing remarks.
I just want to say it's always an honor and a privilege, and I'm always so thankful for you and Adrian and this gallery and the space and the artists that I get to listen. It's just always a good time. It's always delightful. It's always a privilege, and I'm glad you guys are here.
Thank you. And I have to say, Yolanda has been with us since the beginning. You know, we weren't even open yet.
Yep.
When she and I had our first conversation, right, kind of across the street, around the corner.
Yep.
And I was like, I've heard about you, I've seen your work, would you be interested in showing your work at our gallery that almost exists, doesn't quite exist yet?
It's like a kinship now.
Yes, yes,
it's
family, it definitely is.
It's like a family.
And now we're adding Jess to our family, it's okay.
So
2019, as she said. Yes.
As a matter of fact, I grew up about 10 minutes from here. And when I settled back in this area, I drove past it all the time. And I was like, wow, that's such a phenomenal gallery. And when I started painting professionally, I think I just like DM'd, like, I really like to be in your gallery. And here I am. So thank you for taking a chance on me. I appreciate it. I love meeting new artists.
New to you.
New to me,
Yes,
but I
yes.
love it. And I always tell people that the galleries are very much so my second home. I feel a phenomenal energy when I'm in here, when I'm surrounded by art and surrounded by other artists. So thank you for the opportunity.
And I want to thank both of you. I mean, it's funny, I wasn't putting that out there for you guys to necessarily thank us, but I appreciate that you did.
Thank you.
But, I'm honored to be in both of your presence. When I think about it, two Black, women artists who are, you're always practicing in the sense that you're always getting better, trying new things, and to be part of that journey is so exciting. So really, thank you for sharing with us. So as I said, we're going to close out. Nabil, will you come play something for us? So Nabil, we're going to continue taping for a little bit, and you'll get an opportunity to hear Nabil McKee as he shares his. Oh yes, yes. I'm actually gonna let Nabil speak a moment. That'll be the best thing to do. We'll let him come up in front of the camera. Yes. Nabil,
what's up, everyone who's on live stream? My name is Nabil McKee. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I spent the last 4 years of my life in New Orleans, Louisiana, at Loyola University. And up until the pandemic hit, I was living in New Orleans. Moved back to Philadelphia afterwards. And so I'm an artist myself. I'm a musical artist. I play music, I play the saxophone, I play a bunch of different instruments. And I work as a full-time musician. So.
thank you.
What else?
That's it. Nabil, will you just share some of your music with us just as we're ending the.
I'll play something.
So he's going to transition to playing, and you'll see us turning with the camera in his direction.
This is a John Coltrane composition from Untitled Chapter. Thank you.